Hey guys, welcome to the 9th episode of New Car Evolution. This will be a special episode because today we'll be looking at one of the most recognizable cars in the European community as it celebrates its 50th anniversary this year. It's the Volkswagen Golf. The Golf is a mid-size hatchback that was introduced in 1974 as a direct successor for the popular Beetle. The Golf would become Volkswagen's most successful model to be produced, with over 35 million Golfs sold throughout its lifespan, making it sit in third place behind the Ford F-Series and the Toyota Corolla as the best-selling car model of all time. As of 2024, Volkswagen made 8 generations of the Golf. So let's get started. Let's begin with the Mark I, which was in production from 1974 to 2009. There are 10 different variations of the Mark I. One is a 5-door model, one is a cabriolet, one is the iconic GTI, one is a GTD, which is basically the diesel version of the GTI. In America, the Golf was sold as the Rabbit. In 1981, the Rabbit was facelifted. A GTI version of the Rabbit exists. There was a truck version called the Rabbit Pickup. In Mexico, the Golf was sold as the Caribe. From 1984 to 2009, the Golf Mark I was reintroduced as the City Golf for European and African markets. This is a great start for the Volkswagen Golf, as the Mark I, especially in GTI form, is very iconic. Let's jump forward to 1983 with the Mark II, which was in production until 1992. There are 8 different variations of the Mark II. One is a 5-door model. In 1987, the Mark II Golf was facelifted. There's a GTI version. The next 3 variations are main special editions. One is called the Rallier, one is called the Limited, and one is called the Country, which is the off-road version of the Golf. And the final 2 are American spec versions. One is a facelift from the late 80s. This is a difficult one. I don't know whether to call the Mark II the best Golf ever made, or just as good as the previous generation. I've always loved the Mark II Golf for some reason. I don't know what makes me love it, I just do. Anyway, in 1991, Volkswagen brought out the 3rd gen Golf, which in my opinion was a downgrade. This is what it looks like. This was in production until 2002. There are 7 variations of this car. One's a 5-door model. One is a cabriolet. From 1998 to 2002, the cabriolet was facelifted with an identical front end from the next gen Golf. 2 are GTI models. One is a VR6. One is a GTD. For the first time, the variant was introduced, which is the estate version of the Golf. In terms of its styling and quality, it's a major letdown from the previous 2 models. It's not a bad car by any means, but it's just not as exciting as the first 2 generations. Let's move on to the next gen, which is this. It's called the Mark IV, and it was in production from 1997 to 2006, but it continued production in Brazil until 2014. There are 7 variations. One is a 5-door model. In some regions, the variant estate was introduced. One is a GTI. One is an R32, which is basically the more powerful 4-wheel drive version of the Golf GTI. A saloon version called the Jetta was released. From 2003 to 2009, the Golf was sold in China as the Bova HS. In Brazil, the Golf was sold as the City Golf until 2014. Out of all the Golf generations, this was the one I grew up with. It's the most recognizable in my opinion, and it's also just the one that I remember the most as a child. Back in the UK, I have seen plenty of these on the road compared to the other Golf generations, which is why this one is quite special. But it was the next gen Golf that held a special place in my heart for many years. Here it is. It's called the Mark V, and it was in production from 2003 to 2010. There are 11 variants. One is a 5-door. In America, the Golf was sold as the Rabbit. One is the variant Estate. In America, the variant was sold as the Jetta Sportwagen. Then of course you got the saloon version called the Jetta. In Europe, there's an MPV version called the Golf Plus. One is a GT. One is a GTD. One is the GTI. One is the R32. And the final variation is a concept called the W12 650, which uses the same W12 twin-turbocharged engine from the Bentley Continental. This is a really hard decision. I don't know whether I prefer this over the Mark II Golf or not. Both cars just hold a very special place in my heart. I guess as a daily driver, I would prefer the Mark V, but for fun, I would prefer to have the Mark II. But I still don't know which one I would prefer to own overall. Let's move on to what I think is the most infamous Golf from Volkswagen. Here it is. It's called the Mark VI, and it was in production from 2008 to 2016. There are 7 variations of this. One is a 5-door. One is the variant Estate. Like the Mark V, the variant was sold as the Jetta Sportwagen in America. One is a Cabriolet. One is a GTI. One is a facelifted Golf Plus. And the final variation is the R, which is a successor to the R32, but it has a smaller engine. The reason why I called this infamous at the beginning was because that this was part of the Dieselgate scandal from Volkswagen, which I'm not going to get into. Anyway, this is the only Golf that I've actually experienced because my grandparents had one back in the day. But also, I don't really get why they made it a new generation because it's basically the same as the Mark V, just facelifted. In fact, Volkswagen even admitted that this was a facelifted Mark V, so why did they make it a new model rather than just making it a facelift overall? In 2012, Volkswagen had a rebrand, and in this case, they introduced a brand new Golf. Here it is. It's called the Mark VII, and it was in production until 2021. There are 11 variations of this car. One's a 5-door. One is the variant Estate. There is an off-road version of the variant called the Alltrack, which may foreshadow my future. One is the GTI. One is the GTD. One is a GTE, which is a plug-in hybrid. One is the R. One is the R-Wagon. The Mark VII was facelifted in 2016. In Europe, there's an MPV version called the Golf Sports Van. And finally, there's an electric version called the e-Golf. Volkswagen has never failed to make a Golf a bad car, because if you are a Volkswagen person like I am, then you would definitely like all of the Golfs, well, at least most of them. Anyway, we have finally reached the final model of the Volkswagen Golf. Here it is. It's called the Mark 8, and it's been in production since 2019. There are 6 variants. One is the variant Estate. One is a GTI. One is a GTD. One is a GTE. One is the R, and the final variation is a facelift which was introduced this year. Once again, it's a suitable successor from the Mark VII. Overall, the Volkswagen Golf is an enormously likable piece of engineering history. All of them, especially the Mark II and Mark V, are great. I'm hoping to see a future Mark IX Golf in the next few years or so, because that'll be interesting for sure. Thank you everyone for watching, make sure to like, comment and subscribe, and have a Merry Christmas. Bye.